Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka. With me on the show this week is friend of the show, Amanda Pahl, aka Handy Mandy. Amanda is a marriage and family therapist with a specialization in sex therapy. She's about to be a full-blown sex therapist here soon. She's the host of an amazing podcast, and we are going to talk and utilize all her knowledge on things like fetishes and kinks, but more so consensual non-monogamy, opening your relationship, having a wild threesome, swinging, what to do with your feelings of jealousy, what to do with your feelings of perhaps like losing your partner. There is so much value in this episode, not only for people who are wanting to open their relationship or go to a sex party or try something new, right? But for people who may just be curious about it. It's a doozy. You guys are going to love it. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Amanda Pahl.
This week's conversation.
Amanda Pahl, aka Handy Mandy, welcome back to Sex Party. How are you doing?
I am doing so good. I'm ready to party.
Yeah,
I'm ready to get into it.
I feel like it's going to be a fun one.
I think so. I brought the tea.
Yeah. Okay. We love the tea. We love the tea at the party. This is your third appearance officially as a guest. I know you made some cameos in a Christmas special, perhaps, but let's just say someone was in like a sledding accident and they never saw the episode, or they saw them, now they forgot them. Let's bring them up to speed on who you are and what it is that you do. So that way they're not confused, because we wouldn't want someone to be confused.
No, especially not after a sled accident. My name is Amanda Pahl. I go by Handy Mandy on the internet. I have a podcast called the Handy Mandy Podcast. I guess the last time I was here, I was in grad school to be a therapist, a sex therapist specifically. But at this point, I guess since the last time I've been on, I have officially graduated, got my master's degree in marriage and family therapy with a specialization in sex therapy. Yay. I went through 3 years of school. I saw clients for a year. That was crazy. And at this point, I'm about to take my licensing exam and start full-time sex therapy at a practice in January. And I think my little specializations that I've fallen into as I've gotten more practice and learned more, I think has ended up being kinks and fetishes, because it's very niche, and I'm shocked by the number of therapists who have no idea what they're doing when it comes to kinks and fetishes. And then probably consensual non-monogamy, because there's also not so many therapists who work with people in open relationships or in relationship systems. And I apparently like doing the things nobody else is doing. So that's what I've found myself in.
Yeah, I mean, we love that. And I think, gravitating to things that people don't normally do is always a good thing. I'm surprised, just as much as you are probably, to hear that most doctors, therapists aren't like, oh, what's a kink, or or like they're not familiar with that kind of stuff. Why do you think you gravitated towards kinks and consensual non-monogamy? Because it was something that you just started seeing patients and you just became interested, or is it something that you were interested before, or like why do you think you gravitated to those subjects?
I think both. I think for kinks specifically, I spent a good 10 years trying to figure out what was going on with myself and like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Am I crazy? Is there something wrong with me? So I've always related to kinks and fetishes because I understand the feeling of shame. And then when you're working through that, it's like, who am I? Like, this is gross, but also I love it. So that one I kind of always knew. that I would get into it. And it's like one of the highest taboo levels, right? Like everyone talks about, you know, positions and like satisfaction and pleasure, but kinks is kind of that one that some people are afraid to touch. No pun intended. So that's of course what I love, and I found my little home there. And then I think consensual non-monogamy, swinging, polyamory is something I definitely found myself coming across with clients. Because I specialized in sex therapy, I took classes on how to work with not just two people in a relationship, but a whole system of people, and the differences and, you know, the similarities. And I guess when you check the little box that says like, I accept polyamorous clients on our therapy websites, I had people reach out specifically because I advertised that. And those clients came in and said like it was really hard to find someone who looked normal and seemed normal, whatever that means, who was comfortable working with polyamory. So it just happened. I would say a good 30 to 40% of my clients were either polyamorous or talking about swinging with me in sessions.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I think, I mean, even now it seems like, and I think, I don't know. And again, I'm just coming to it with like fucking white guy podcaster brain, right? So you're the expert, but I had noticed, obviously, doing this show for as long as I have, that and then like being in the algorithm on Instagram for like swinging and for like polyamory, kink, all of these things, it obviously seems like it's more out, like now it's like proliferated. There's more of it out there now available, but that may just be because, you know, fucking social media and dating apps and apps that are more specifically tuned to like, you know, alternative, which I don't even know why we're calling it that still, but whatever, alternative lifestyles. So do you think that it's just a case of, hey, it's always been there when people really didn't talk about it, or it's like, oh shit, this is exploding because people are learning that it is capable to have a threesome and not destroy your relationship, or swing with a couple, or put a bag over your head consensually, and, you know, and like, whatever. Like, where do you think which one is it? Is it just like happening more, or is it a combination?
It's definitely a combination. With more visibility, more people are learning about it. But I think also just the ways that so many things in the world have shifted, I do think, especially Gen Z, the percentage of people who are polyamorous, like you can see this from dating app statistics, is rising. And these people were born with social media their whole lives. So maybe they're learning about it online and people are talking about it, but I also think how fucked up the world is now, we're realizing like we don't have to do it this way. We can't afford a house with just 2 incomes. So let's group up, get it on, go all in on a house, raise each other's kids, because how else are we gonna, you know, it's a resource network, honestly. But just saying like, fuck you, society. People aren't limited to one person. And even if you want to stay with one person forever, it doesn't mean you can't have new experiences and get some variety that way. So I think there's just less fucks to give.
Yeah, no, I mean, a great handy-mandy answer. It was professional and fun. And so that's what we love about you. It's perfect for sex party, right? What would you say is, well, I mean, when people come in, is it an issue where is it polyamorous people that are like, hey, I'm having issues because this is so difficult maintaining this? Or is it like, I want to open my relationship, but I don't want to hurt my partner's feelings? I know you're going to say both, but which one is more? Because I do feel like there are a lot of people out there that are very curious about opening their relationships or swinging, having a threesome or some sort of experience, going to a sex party, whatever it may be. But they can't even begin to bring that up to their girlfriend or boyfriend because they don't want to hurt their feelings. So yeah, take it away. I don't even know what my question was at this point.
Yeah, I think I would say across the clients that I've seen personally, polyamory was never the central problem for why they came to therapy. It was like, I'm having this issue and I'm also polyamorous. I would never tell a client like, that's the reason you feel this way. It was always just like context for the rest of their life. But what I will say is when I see problems develop in people or systems that are polyamorous, it's because they're not doing it the way it's intended and the way it's supposed to be done healthily. Yeah. So like, the foundations are like transparency, open communication, honesty, mutual respect. And so when those things aren't being done either from the beginning, how they started, or something happened and those things are lost, that's when it becomes an issue. And then with swinging, a lot of times it's couples that are there for a relationship problem that kind of throw it out there. Like, oh, well, what about swinging? We've heard about this. And I haven't personally seen like, I want to do this and I need help. I know that that's a huge reason why people might see a sex therapist, is to figure out how to navigate that.
Right.
But if someone's in therapy, it's because things are not all perfect and great. And so when they're talking about swinging in therapy, it's usually like, maybe this will help. And then I have to be like, maybe it won't though. So, but that's kind of indicative of like, you're not going to see a healthy polyamorous system or healthy swingers coming to therapy for swinging or for polyamory because they are doing it correctly,
Right. Yeah. I mean, and maybe you could jump back in and just like basic point here, but sometimes the basics are important, but just, talk directly to the audience and tell them that, hey, starting a swinging practice or opening a relationship or having a threesome is not going to save your relationship. In all likelihood, it'll probably doom it. So if you could take it away and tell them that professionally, because it's a big thing.
Guys, it's not going to fix anything. It might fuck everything up. Opening your relationship, deciding to try swinging should never be like an attempted solution to a problem you're having. Like, oh, like I'm feeling insecure, we're dealing with jealousy. Maybe if we try swinging, it'll help me get over that. Like exposure to it might like desensitize. No, dear God, please. No.
Yeah.
The majority of times when swinging is this double-edged sword, if you're in a really good place in your relationship, it's just like the cherry on top. It's these experiences that are fun, that add value, and they spice up your sex life as a couple. But if you're not in a good spot, it could end everything. And when people rush into it and are trying like, a Hail Mary to save their relationship with swinging or with these experiences, and the foundation is not stable, like I have told clients to their face, like, I highly recommend you do not do this. Like, I've seen what's going on. This is not the time or place to open this conversation. Just don't fucking do it, okay? Not if you're not in a good spot. Otherwise, have so much fun. But, like, it will not fix things. You have to have communication level 10. You have to have trust level 1000 in order for it to be a good experience. Amen.
Yeah, and so you told so I think let's do something different. Okay. Let's say, cause I'll pivot back to the other thing, but like, let's mix it up. Why not? Right. Let's say a couple is in a good spot and their sex is good. They're horny. They want to mix it up with another couple, right? They want to experience something different. Threesome, swinging, sex party, whatever floats your guys' boats, right? They're ready to do it and they're healthy in their relationship. What are some of the benefits then to the relationship that they'll see from the experience? Because see, you thought I was going to ask you like, oh, how do they do it? Right. What are the first steps? That question's coming next, but I just threw you a curveball. So,
I don't play baseball, Dustin. Okay. So I actually did when I was younger. Not the point. ADHD. When
softball or baseball?
It's T-ball. It's T-ball. I can't swing from a free-flying ball. The ball's got to be teed. Anyway, the benefits. So if you're going to have these experiences, you're talking about it, right? You're talking about what are the things we want to do? Is it with a girl? Is it with a guy? Do we not care how many people? What things do you want to try? When you're having those conversations as a couple, even before anything starts, you're feeding your mind and you're driving to work and you're like, ooh, what about this thing? Or you're reflecting on the conversation you had the other night. Maybe you're showing each other porn scenes that show like some configuration of people and be like, I want that part icks me out a little bit. But when you're having these conversations, just the two of you, you're thinking about sex more, which means you want sex more. And it kind of becomes a fantasy source. So even before any of that's happening, just talking about it and talking about what you want to do, you have like heightened sexual thoughts. So it could be more frequent sex. Like if you're feeling horny from thinking about it and talking about it all the time, you might just be having more sex with your partner. During the experience, obviously doing it for the first time, navigating the nerves and everything can be a lot, but a lot of people seeing their partner getting pleasure or seeing, because when we have sex, we see it first person point of view, but when you're seeing it from a third person point of view, it's hot. It's like watching porn of the person that you love the most in the world feeling good. And for some people, it brings up a little jealousy, a little insecurity, but it can also bring up compersion, which is getting pleasure from seeing your partner get pleasure. And since you're not the one doing it, it's exciting and it's new and it's uncomfortable, but it's a whole other thing you might never have experienced. And then afterwards, during the little debrief, everybody needs a debrief. You're like, okay, what did you like? Oh, well, they did that really good. And then it's a fun kind of like, oh, well, then I'm going to get better at that so I can do it as good as they did it. Or, having sex with a person that you're not usually having sex with, or a couple, is like, oh, that person moans a lot louder. Like maybe we should try being more verbal or more dirty talk. Like you get so many more ideas by sharing these experiences with new people. And then, I don't know, you go back to work on Monday and you're sitting at your desk and you're just getting flashes of like Eiffel Towers and you're like, oh, that was fun. And then you want to have sex when you go home. So yeah, there's like the before, during, and after, like there's benefits for the whole process. Even if you talk about it and never end up doing it, like that adds energy to the relationship.
No, I mean, again, another brilliant, beautiful Amanda Pahl answer. And I really appreciate that. And you touched on something that I want to go drill further into, no pun intended. But I mean, everything we say on a sex party, I just sounds like sex. So whatever.
You don't have to say no pun intended.
I know. I feel like I should just stop. So just yeah. We're going to drill into this, but so what would you say is the difference between compersion and like cuckolding, right? Because because this is totally a thing, and I feel like, you know, cuckolding has turned into like this like secret thing that both men and women, like, you know, maybe they're masturbating to it on the hub, or they're having fantasies or whatever. But I think there's a huge difference. Again, podcast guy versus professional here. But what would you say the difference between compersion and cuckolding is?
I could be, well, okay. Correct me if you have a different understanding of it, but I think it has to do with the power dynamics and whether or not you're into the degradation, humiliation side of it. So as I understand it, and there's a lot of different types of cuckolding, like what a person wants and what label they choose. They could choose, you know, cuckold, or they could choose, you know, voyeur. I don't know. But I think with cuckolding, it's it's that feeling of like somebody more masculine or somebody, you know, with a bigger dick is going to come in and give my wife what she deserves because I can't. And like, I'll just watch. They enjoy that kind of degrading feeling. And there's a huge spectrum of what that can look like. But I think with compersion, it's not about like, oh, I'm being dominated and she's being dominated by this bigger other person. It's more like watching from that third person point of view, like the person that you're so into and you love so much, feeling so good by someone else. Mm-hmm. It's not about the power dynamic or, you know, playing into the insecurity. It's just like good for them. Like, look at her go. Look at him go. He's enjoying it. Like, and I'm like here to support and mediate if I need to, but also just like beautiful. Look at them going at each other. Like, I feel like that's the difference. Do you think that all people who are into cuckolding, it has to do with the degradation and humiliation? Because that's a big conversation right now, is like, does that have to be a part of it?
So I love this question. I think that no, I think you're right. I think there are different levels to cuckolding for sure, absolutely. But I think, to me, like, you know, and that's why I asked this, because it's fascinating, compersion versus cuckolding, because the conversation has gotten wider recently. And even like now there's this whole other thing where for a minute it was called like reverse cuckolding, where it was the woman watching her dude like fuck another chick and like put her down and degrade her or whatever. But now they're just calling it cuckolding, except it's like cuckolding Taylor's version, right? Basically, like for women or whatever, right? And so yeah, or like, what, you know, basically like the woman is the one that's watching the man fuck another woman. And I have come up against that, or come up to that experience in my personal life before in the past, and it's been a thing on that angle. But I think what that did is it like widened the conversation, right? And so I think you can have fantasies of your lover, right, like being hammered out by someone, or them hammering someone out, without it being like you're duct taped to a chair and crying and like what, like, you know, to me, like like the humiliation piece is what separates cuckolding from compersion. But I feel like it's a very like gray line, if that makes sense, because I think there are different levels to cuckolding.
Yeah, I think it's shifting. I think the original definition of cuckolding was about the humiliation, the degradation. But yeah. I think maybe as it's becoming more widely talked about or more popular, that's always the question. Which one is it? I don't know. But I think people are kind of using it as an umbrella term, which is why we should introduce compersion. Because imagine like you just want to watch your lady like get railed by a dude. Yeah. The difference between coming up and saying, I want to be a cuck versus I would feel pleasure by watching you have a new experience. Like, the connotation is so different. And I think some people might get scared or might be resistant or have like shame or stigma if you're misusing cuckolding, like misrepresenting what you actually want. If you just want to see your partner having a great time with someone else, I don't think you have to call it cuckolding. I think you just call it like group sex, swinging, 3 ways. With a little added, like, I'm just going to take a drink of water and stand over here for a second while you know?
Yeah, you're taking a water break. It's a term we use on the show all the time because as you see, I'm constantly drinking water or something. There's like 4 different drinks going on. But a water break, you need a water break during a sex party. So here we are, you just brought it up. So there's our water break. I'm sure there'll be a little ding and it'll say water break somewhere around here. I don't know, whatever. The editor will work her magic. Yeah. Cheers. And so this is fascinating because there is, I mean, normally again, cuckolding is like you're watching someone almost like against your will in some instances. And it's like, oh my God, they're fucking my wife or my girlfriend and she's loving it. And saying, he's so much better than you, blah, blah, blah. And then there's this other piece that you kind of hit on just now where it's like, you want in your head or in real life or whatever it is, you want to watch her get blown out by 1 or 2 or 3 people, right? Guys, whatever. And you're like, yeah, fucking take that, bitch. You like that cock, like whatever. Right. And so that seems very, very polar opposite to me, although the act is the same. So that's to me where I would say compersion versus, I guess it comes down to your level of, are you the aggressor who's like, kind of watching in that way? Or are you sort of like the person who's like being tormented or demeaned, right? I guess tormented works too. That's where I would say. So I think that's great that you put a finer point on that. I love the introduction of the word compersion to the conversation for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think when we talk about any non-traditional or kinky or like different kind of sex, the assumption is that it's like hardcore red lights, leather, like 14-inch dong. But let's let's water down cuckolding, compersion dynamics a little bit to like the average person, right? Instead
like
of
dong.
The humiliation, the degradation. What?
I said like an 8-inch dong. We'll bring it down. Bring it down. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, let's like dial it back to what the majority of people are more likely to be interested in. Is a dynamic where, a husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, healthy relationship, they bring in someone they trust. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's someone they met and vetted on an app, maybe it's somebody they met at a party. They bring them in and the new guy and the girl, are hooking up and it's their first time they're exploring. It might be a little quiet, a little bit like whatever. And then the guy is sitting in a comfortable chair, not tied to anything and being like, do more of this. She really likes that thing. And then she moans and he's like, you're doing a really good job. Like, why does it have to be whips and chains and giving brain? Like, it can be sweet and silly and chill. Like, it can be chill. And I think for the majority of people, it actually is. And I think that's something a lot of people don't understand or might not know is like, in your fantasies, it's all completely different and it's hot and it's, the kind of room you're in, dark and like sexy. But when you're doing it in real life, it can be very like light and airy and fun, and not that deep.
Yeah. Well, and I think, do you think a lot of people struggle when they're doing it for the first time and the couple's about to come over and couple A is very nervous, then couple B is on the way to their apartment and they're like, do I put the bowl of Fritos out? Is that tacky? Like what they're like there's are they overthinking it to that level? That is anyone even going to touch the Fritos? What if we get hungry? Is this weird? Like I feel like these are small little things too that people don't ever talk about. And like I'm, silly enough to go there and throw it out as a joke, but like it's real. I mean, there's so many things I think people get tripped up about. I think you're absolutely right. Again, you come to these sort of like fun conversations with me from this like level of intelligence, and you're right, because I think someone's like, I kind of have this inkling that I want to do this thing that I've been thinking about. And then they see like whips, chains, red lights. Oh God, 14-inch dong. No, wait. And then like they kind of talk themselves out of it and get a little freaked out. Right. So is that, do you think that stops people from actually going through with this because they freak out? They think it's like kink.com kind of shit or what?
Yeah, I think people, especially people either with anxiety or that are anxious about something, because you're trying a new thing, it's kind of weird, like you're gonna feel anxious. We tend to catastrophize and think of like the level 10 scenario, like the most intense it could possibly be, or the worst possible scenario that could go wrong. And we don't think about like, you can do whatever level you want. If you want to invite a couple over and kind of just have like a double date and suss it out, and that's it, and send them home and then talk like, was that good? Or if you want to make out like it's high school in a circle, play spin the bottle, and that was enough for that night, that's okay. Or if you want to, do those things, have a drink or two, and do like parallel sex, like the couples stay together but they're in the same room. Like you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can make it whatever you want it to. And if you want to go all the way up to whips and chains, you definitely can, but it can be gradual and it can be experimental, and it doesn't have to be intimidating. I mean, it's gonna be intimidating no matter what, but it doesn't have to be like so intense all at once, because you wouldn't really do that. Maybe you would. Most people really wouldn't do that with any partner, is go from 0 to 100 like instantly.
Yeah, I mean, I have, but I mean, sure. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
But at the same time, I do respect the going slow, and I think there is a really fun intimacy and how do I put this? Connection that you can have with someone when you do, even if you are more experienced or whatever it is, that you can slow down, right? And kind of like, I don't want to say handhold, but like you kind of enjoy it almost through their eyes, and it's almost like fun because it's like, yeah, I rode all those roller coasters. One time I was blindfolded or whatever, or when I was upside down, and and I jumped off of one or whatever. But then you kind of you approach it through new eyes through your partner who may not be as experienced, and that can be a really fucking beautiful thing, to be honest.
It can boost the trust. It can boost the connection. And I do think like when you're new, that's when I'm saying you take it slow, like it's high school. When you're experienced, you can show up at a party, point to a couple, do it, leave, and that may be your level 10. But like when you're starting out, I think that would overwhelm probably most people to start like that.
Yeah. And so again, you hit on something else. And I think a lot of people have this situation happen where they start talking about it slowly and sort of like, oh yeah, maybe, and then one partner, usually the guy, is like, oh, well, do you, maybe we could call Kelly, or do you want to find like all of that. And so then that sort of freaks out the woman usually, or the other partner. I mean, I actually have seen it both ways, where one partner just is going too fast. So what's your advice there? Like, how do you not get upset when you're upset? You know what I mean?
How do you untrigger yourself? Yeah. I think
right.
I've seen it both ways too, but if you're having these conversations and you get to a point where you're open enough and talking about it to where you're like, okay, then what is the actual steps that we take? I think what can help is giving the person who is a little bit more nervous about it more of the control. So saying like, okay, you download the app on your phone and we'll just check it together once a week or after date night. And also you can swipe on people, talk to people, get to know them, like maybe send some couples some home videos, nudes, whatever it is. And that doesn't mean you have to hook up with anyone. Obviously don't like mislead anybody, but I think when people are nervous, they're kind of assuming like, oh, if we open this door, he's going to be obsessed with it and I can't take it back. But at any point you can be like, actually, let's give it some more time. I don't feel ready. Like telling your partner or telling each other, like, this is flexible. It can change over time. Maybe we go through a phase and we process and then we come back to it later when we want to. Like, it's not Pandora's box. Like, it's not like you open it and everything happens all at once. Like, it's all up to you. And I think giving that more hesitant person the control kind of shows them like, yes, this is fun, but it's not the most important thing to me. It's not something that I need to happen. Like, let's take it at your pace.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's such a pro move. And I do think that is a worry for people who are in like a committed, like loving relationship, is that they're both horny and they're both open to it. And so, but what if we do it and like this woman sucks my partner's dick and then he leaves with her? Or what if we do it and someone fucks my girlfriend, you know, better than I have, and then they're in love? Like those sorts of things I think are stoppers. Like even for me personally, like I've dealt with that up here on both sides in my life before. And I think that's probably a huge issue to tackle, because it's more than just jealousy, which we can rope right into the same line of questioning, but it's more of like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose this person. So as a sex therapist, as someone who has, you know, a connection to all things sex and at an education level that most people don't have, like, how do you approach that sort of piece of this? Is, I don't want to lose this person, and or am I going to freak out and throw the bowl of Fritos when I see the penis go in or whatever, you know?
Do you have a Frito fetish? Why do the Fritos keep coming back up in our hypothetical swinging party?
I really don't know, but I was like trying to work the joke back in. So then that's how I worked it back in. Cause I feel like, it's definitely a mediocre joke, but like I still have to like get it in there somehow. So.
Right. I feel like out of all of the snack foods to provide at a party where you're going to be making out with people, Fritos would be like the last one. But
well, I think Cheetos would be the last because they get all over your hands. I already thought about this. Flaming hot Cheetos would be the worst thing to serve at a sex party, don't you think?
Not if you like finger sucking.
That's true.
Spicy.
That's true. Yeah.
It could burn though. We don't know. What was the question? Oh,
the question. It was. Are we going with Cool Ranch Doritos or traditional nacho cheese? No. The question was, when you sort of are like on that precipice of oh my God, of wanting to do it, right? Like there's a jealousy factor, which is human, but then there's for people who are in love, right? And in a committed relationship, there's also a factor that I think is stronger than jealousy. And that is, I don't want to lose my partner because someone gave them better head or fucked them better or whatever. And I think that is probably the fear of losing a partner is probably larger than jealousy. So how do you approach that from where you're sitting?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. Like, you could be in the healthiest relationship ever and these fears still pop up, but you have to ask yourself if they are based in reality or if they're insecurity. I'm trying to remember what my Lord and Savior, Dr. Emily Morse, said. Fears are false evidence, like assumed as reality. So if you're thinking, if this couple is thinking like, okay, we're gonna swing, but what if, you know, his dick is way bigger and she doesn't like mine anymore? Is it because you know that she picked this person specifically for that reason? And even then, it's not a bad thing. Has
Sure.
she made negative comments about you or implied that it's not satisfying? Then you might want to look at your relationship and be like, am I afraid I'm going to lose her because she's giving me hints that she wants something else? Or if it's an insecurity, it's more like, okay, in all reality, even if this guy's dick was bigger, better, curved the right way, I believe our relationship is strong enough that even if it was perfect, that would not be enough for her to leave me. And I don't think it should be ever. Like, if you genuinely believe that great head with somebody new is enough to ruin your relationship, you probably shouldn't be swinging.
No, that is so.
This is like relationship context. Like if you're casually dating and you're like having 3-way swinging, this is different. Then like maybe your connection isn't deep enough, and if they like this person's sex better and you guys aren't that serious, then maybe they might like, you know, if you're not that connected. But if this is somebody that like your partner, somebody that you're in love with or that you want to have a future with, you need to get to a point where even if the sex is bomb, that wouldn't be enough for them to just pick up and leave you. And if like you genuinely think that could happen, maybe they're not like a safe partner to do that with.
Yeah, no, I mean, fucking brilliant advice, brilliant guidance. Again, thank you for that. That's fucking awesome, really, and super valuable, guys. I hope you guys are getting value out of this. We talked about chips, and now we're, you know, and so you know what not to serve at your thing, and now you know how to balance your actual real fears. What would you say? What would you say about like the jealousy piece? Because we talk a lot about this on the show in this context with like swinging and with like polyamory and, you know, all the fucking things, right? And gangbangs and sex parties and whatever. But where if you're able to kind of look at the jealousy and try to figure out why you're having that jealousy, like you can spin off and say whatever you want from your perspective, but the same way you just did with the fears of losing the partner, like you actually brought it back down to reality and kind of showed everyone like, hey, are you in the right relationship if you're worried about a bigger penis or a better head job, right? So now what do we do about the jealousy? Because it's going to happen. We're all human on some level, right?
Yeah. I think the assumption is people that are in open relationships of any kind have like become immune to jealousy, and that's why they can do this, is because they're just never jealous. No, jealousy happens to everyone. It can happen the first time you're swinging. It can happen the 10th time you're swinging. It can even come up if you're not currently swinging, but you're reflecting on something. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think my advice is always ride the wave. Like, something might trigger you in the moment that you didn't realize, like, or don't even know, like, why am I feeling insecure right now? Why am I feeling jealous? Feelings are temporary. So it's very possible to like have that feeling, maybe to pause, take a water break, go let your dogs out, make up some excuse, you know, go process it and be like, it's okay that I'm feeling like this. I'm doing something crazy. So crazy shit's going to come up in my head, but it's temporary. And this is just what I'm feeling right now. Let yourself kind of come back down and then re-enter the situation, or like press unpause for everybody, and talk about it. Like, maybe not in the moment if you don't know the couple very well. Afterwards, during your debrief, be like, in this moment, I felt this way. And maybe you know why. Maybe you're like, you just looked like you were having such a great time and I felt a little bit jealous that like you don't moan that loud with me, or, you know, whatever it is, and then talk about it. Because if you're in a healthy relationship, most likely your partner is going to reassure you like, yeah, I was having a great time, but it's because you were here. It's because we're doing this together. I think when jealousy turns things sour, it's because you're not letting the wave rise and fall. You're holding on to the top. Like you think like, oh, because I feel jealous, like this whole thing is over, or we can never do this again, or they're going to leave me. Like you're jumping to these conclusions and you're not letting, you know, the wave crash. And so that's, I think, when it becomes more of a problem is when you're hanging on to it and like internalizing it or blaming your partner, or you're not talking through it, then it sticks with you and it becomes a big problem.
Yeah. And that, you know, that's something that I think people can practice even like in their everyday life when you get jealous, because we constantly have, you know, for people who are partnered, you know, I guess, or maybe even if you're not, I guess, like people just get like really jealous over little things. Like, okay, why is he talking to fucking this girl in his DMs or whatever? And sometimes there's really valid reason to be upset, and other times it's kind of like, does this really matter? Like, does this really, like, because I've had that as a human, like, come up, and I'm like, oh fuck, I've gotten really good at being like, who cares, you know, or whatever. But like, I don't want to then say that to everybody, like, hey, just be like, who cares? Because you know, maybe you don't want to be as who cares as I get, because then you're emotionless and it's not good. But it does afford you a freedom when you learn how to take the jealousy in and be like, okay, this kind of stings, but why? And do we really give a shit in the long run? Does it really matter? And like, it just kind of like goes, like you said, like a wave, it goes back down. So I think that's really valuable.
Right. Yeah. And I think a good reframe, I mean, you're right about like different kinds of jealousy. If you're jealous because like there's a boundary being crossed, like you said you weren't going to do anal and then all of a sudden you see your partner doing anal with this other person, I think that jealousy is more like it's not just jealousy. They're doing something they shouldn't be doing and you have a complete right to feel that way. But I think those like little jealousies that come up, let's say, yeah, there's somebody in your DMs, but they're a family friend, a coworker, and all of a sudden your partner is like, who the fuck is that? Like, you're a man whore. That's insecurity-based jealousy. And that's what we don't need in swinging. So if you know your partner, or that you're the kind of person who just has a really short fuse and gets jealous when somebody looks at your partner the wrong way, maybe you're not ready yet. And I also think, actually, I don't know what I think. I just forgot.
Well, you can continue to think about it. Because I'll buy you some time. I mean, first of all, unauthorized anal. I mean, yeah, that's a fucking boundary cross right there. If you said, hey, he's not going in your ass, and then he goes in her ass and she's whatever in front of you, huge boundary. Also, too, side note, I have definitely been in that relationship. Who the fuck are you talking to? Like, or whatever, right? It's been like, you know, a family friend or a cousin or something, and that, or like one of my sisters or something like that. So I've had that experience too. And that usually, and I'm not, again, don't take my word for it, because I just host podcasts and I'm not legally responsible for what happens, but, or so says my attorney, but, right. Well, since the fucking P. Diddy episode, I've been in constant contact with an attorney. So that's a whole other thing. But because we did an episode now I have to say what it is. We did an episode. We had some things in the episode. We had an insider and they turned out to be true, and they didn't want us to put it out. We put it out. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. Anyway, we were the first to break some things. And anyway, but back to my original thought, Jesus, if you are dating someone who
the whole month rants.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, come on, right? If you're dating someone who's jealous, like you mentioned, it's probably a good indicator that you shouldn't even try to have some sort of open threesome kind of thing, because more likely than not, your clothes are going to get lit on fire, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Either they don't trust you because of your behavior in the relationship. And then if you don't have trust, you shouldn't be swinging. Or they're deeply insecure. Maybe there's some past experiences, some trauma that they need to work through before they swing. So if you're having that like very intense, frequent, like kind of irrational jealousy coming up, it's either you or it's them, and y'all got to figure it out first. Not to say you can't ever get there, but all you're going to do is pour gasoline on the fire if you try to swing when that's already going on.
Yeah. No, it's not good. It's I mean, just sort of, I don't know. You need to reevaluate who you're with at that point, I think. Again, just a little advice. So another thing I want to bring up too, because I think it's really important, is, you know, in the beginning we talked a lot about like having these conversations and, ooh, what would this look like? What would that look like? And how that can just like make you horny, and then you're fucking more often, or you're trying little things or whatever. There's also this element of like role play, where you can role play that you're in a gangbang, or you could role play that you're in a swinging situation, or whatever your imagination comes up with. And I think that sometimes for some couples, not all, that's enough, right? They don't even need to go have the fucking swing fest or whatever. And then other times they're like, damn, like this, we should really do this kind of thing or whatever. So if you could talk about role play and like the importance of it in a relationship, because I think people really, it's almost like a, you know, don't tell, that's like, you know, that no one's talking to their friends about, oh my God, the other night we totally, you know, dressed up, and, you know, like nobody talks about how important role play is in a relationship.
Yeah, me and my friends totally don't talk like that at all. No, I have a very open, nice friend group. Like we get weird, but not with each other, but in discussions. Because boundaries. Anyway, I think role play, yes, it's kind of you're learning how to swim before you jump in the ocean. Like, I think the porn is one part. Like, in my opinion, if you're going to be swinging with each other, you should also feel comfortable enough to watch some porn together. So watching it and pointing out like, okay, if I was in that position and you were there, like visualizing it, I think is kind of step one, or talking in detail about what specific situations you find like desirable. And then I think the role playing part is where toys are like super helpful. So if you're fantasizing about being in the middle of an Eiffel Tower, maybe have, you know, your partner fucking you while you're sucking a dildo. Because if you realize that that's too much stimulation going on, maybe you actually don't want to do it with two real people. Maybe there's something else about it that you like. I think kind of playing those situations out, and it's hard because if you're bringing in a third person, or if you're bringing in another couple, like there's only two roles that you have, so you can't necessarily get everybody else in there. But even having sex, pausing and being like, oh, like if we did swing and we're doing this, that person could be doing that while that person's doing that. Like laying it out in your head, I think is a really good way to get a more realistic picture of what it's actually going to look like. Because it's very rarely is it just like carnal, intense, like everybody's just tangled and like time flies. No, sometimes you have to take moments to be like, okay, I'm getting a cramp, like let's switch, you go here, I'll go here, she lays down. Like there's logistics. When there's more than two people, there are logistics, especially if you don't want anyone to kind of be left on, you know, be not left out. No one should ever feel left out, but like,
right.
Everyone wants their parts touched at the same time, right? So it takes some fucking engineering to make sure that happens, and to make sure everyone's kind of getting equal pleasure. And I think talking about that and watching things and role playing and like adding toys to simulate, you get a better picture of like, okay, this will work. Like this position's good. Obviously you can't really process as much of the emotions because there's no other people there. But I think it's a good like dip to figure out like, are we comfortable with this, or is this just a fantasy that we don't need to explore with other people?
Yeah, I think it's so fucking important. And that's why I wanted to get your opinion on it, because I think it is just role play can spice up a relationship like fucking crazy. And then you can kind of like push the envelope, push your boundaries like with each other safely, more so than whatever. So I definitely want to get to a couple more things, and then I know we have an announcement at the end, right? Because whatever, but which you're like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? What announcement is that? Well, we'll get to it, right?
You're pregnant.
I hope not. So how would you suggest that? Are there apps, right? If the people really want to get into the swinging, they want to have a threesome, a foursome, whatever. Are there certain apps? And what are your thoughts on, for the first time at least, hiring a sex worker for this experience? Because there's no emotion really there.
Yeah. I think if you're first starting out, I would start out with an app. There's one called 3Fun, I think 3F. I'm pretty sure it's free. And it's like a dating app, and you can make individual profiles and link them together, and get notified each time each person matches with somebody. I think that's kind of the least intimidating way, because you can also go on Reddit pages in your community or Facebook groups, or FetLife groups, but those tend to be more intense, like, hung stag looking for tiny bitch couple to like for a fun night of fucking. And like, if you're just starting out, that might not really be what you're looking for. Or it could be. And then maybe you actually should just go over to FetLife right now and start there. I think it's a familiar way to do it, because the majority of us have been on dating apps and we kind of know the deal. Don't match with somebody who doesn't have any bio or doesn't disclose their status. And then in terms of, I think once you're more comfortable, that's when you can like meet people at clubs or parties. And then I think hiring a sex worker is an incredible option, especially if you kind of know what you're looking for, but you're just really nervous to find the right person. Because actually, before I would go to a sex worker, I would go to like a mistress, or sometimes what we call sexual surrogates. Like, you find somebody in the community, in the kink community, in the swinging community, with a little bit of power, like somebody higher up, and you say like, this is what we're looking for. Can you like match us? Because a lot of times like a mistress will have bulls or stags or just people that they know that would be like, actually, this guy would be a really good fit for you guys. And they can kind of matchmake and be there to make sure you feel safe. I think some sex workers could also take that on, maybe do it themselves. But I think finding somebody in your community who knows the people in your area is a great way to do it safely. And also, like, if they're good at it, they have clean tests. You don't have to worry about that. And you can trust that like consent will be at the center of everything. And you kind of have like a supervisor to make sure everyone's doing okay.
I mean, are they Googling mistresses near me, or how are they finding?
Yeah, I mean, you find your Reddit group, your Facebook group. I recently talked to somebody who was like a mistress in the Denver swinger and Denver kink community, and she has organized couples and been like, oh, Joe and Kimberly, like, they would be really good with Adam and Anastasia, like, and then they put them together, and maybe she stays there and like watches and checks in and is like, are you feeling okay? You look a little tired. Like, do you want to talk about anything? Having somebody who knows more than you do, and that you feel comfortable with. I would say that's the benefit of finding somebody experienced and local, is that they're like physically there for you too.
Yeah, no, fucking awesome idea. I mean, that's incredible. Okay, here at the end, right? Your the big announcement, okay, is that your amazing podcast is it's either out right now or it's coming out like tomorrow or the next day. We don't know because we are in the past, but you're listening to this in the future. So could you talk about your podcast? I'm really excited because you're doing something a little different than last season. I'm really pumped about it. So if you could just plug the shit out of the podcast, because I feel like my audience would really fucking love your show.
Yes. And before I plug the shit out of it, I finally remembered that thing that I forgot a long time ago, which I will recap so quickly.
Sure. Yeah.
In
No,
terms
go for
of
it.
jealousy, just let me go on this journey with me. In terms of jealousy, I think people get jealous when they're viewing it as, you know, when you're swinging, you're switching. You could be switching partners if you're doing a full swap. So it's my girl with this new guy or my guy with this other bitch. That came on kind of aggressive. You're seeing it as separate. If you can reframe the entire thing as an experience for your relationship, a group experience, then you're like, she has bigger boobs than me. But that's really cool because now he gets to experience big boobs for the weekend. Or like, you know, that guy's dick is so much bigger. Like, I'm glad my girl gets to experience that right now. If you can reframe it that way, the jealousy seems a lot less intense. Like, it's a group experience. It's something for the relationship. It's not a charity that you're doing for your partner.
I mean, fucking
Period.
group project for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, my plugging the shit out of it. Yes, I'm coming back for season 2 of the Handy Mandy podcast. Last season, it was a lot of education, a lot of covering different taboo topics as I was studying them, as I was getting to know them. In this kind of new era, I've now worked with clients and have had these conversations. And I think so many podcasts can tell you, you know, the tips and tricks and the positions and the toys. But I think people really want to hear real life experiences. And so I'm going to have a bunch of guests. Some of them we will name. Some of them will be anonymous because the stories they tell, they could lose their job if anyone knows who they are. So the crazier ones we will be keeping anonymous, but it's going to be things like talking to a mistress about what she does, talking to people who attend sex parties or are unicorns in 3 ways, people who are really into pegging, or let's sit down with this couple and talk about their first experience with femdom. Like, the ones that you wish you could just be a fly on the wall for, we're going to do that. And we're still going to keep, some will be flying solo, and I'll just be yapping. But I really want to get real people and real stories in.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm super excited about it. And I think coming from you, who does have all of this experience now, right, but also has like this fun personality, who's serious but doesn't take themselves too serious, I think that's going to be really fun to watch in interviews and shit. So I can't fucking wait. Amanda Pahl, aka Handy Mandy, thank you for being with me this week on Sex Party. You just plug the podcast, but like, where can they find it, right? Where can they find your socials? Can they work with you if they don't live wherever you live or whatever? Like, what's going on? Plug it all and all that.
Yes. Socials, I'm on Instagram, handymandy919, because some bitch took Handy Mandy. The podcast is called the Handy Mandy Podcast. You can get it wherever you listen. I do have an email linked. If you are interested in being a client, I'm not taking new clients until January. And because of different state laws, I I can only provide therapy to people in the state of North Carolina. As of right now, that might change with new laws. But if you have a question ever or are interested in like a one-time coaching session, you can email me and reach out. Yeah, and I will start seeing people January, like I said.
Hell yeah. Well, it's always a pleasure, and you always make the show so much better when you're on it, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you. So thank you so much. I mean, well, you know, you're going to come back, so we'll set that up soon. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to have you on mine. So everyone come listen if you want to hear the tea on Dustin.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of like a couple of things that I've never said before. I'm going to save it for your show. So.
Wow, I feel so special. Thank you.
Awesome. Talk soon.
Bye.
Big thank you to my guest, Amanda Pahl, for being with me on the show, aka Handy Mandy. Make sure you go check out everything she is doing on her Instagram. Go check out her podcast. I will be a guest over there if I'm not already in the future when you're listening to this or watching this. If you're loving guests like Amanda, you want to see Amanda again, she will be back at some point. But you're loving Sex Party and you want to show that love, what can you do? Well, if you're listening to this on platforms like Apple or Spotify, you could leave a rating, you could leave a review, but fuck all that. Because honestly, what you really want to do, the only thing that matters is that you subscribe to the show so you never miss a brand new episode every single Wednesday, especially if you think you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts. You might want to check because they've been doing this thing where they've been unsubscribing people to certain podcasts. We have no idea why. We're trying to figure it out. So go to Apple Podcasts, go to Sex Party with Dustin Rybka. Upper right-hand corner, you'll see a symbol. If it's a check mark, you're good. If it's a pause button or anything else, tap it. Drop-down menu will appear. Go down to resume subscription, resume downloads, whatever it is. If you're watching on YouTube, I love you. I see you. I appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, have you ever been in an experience with multiple partners? Have you ever done swinging? Have you ever been to a sex party? Do you practice polyamory? Let me know all the things in the comments. Put some wild stories in there. Let's talk about it. I love to interact with you guys. If you're watching on YouTube and you're wondering what you could do, I mean, you could like all the videos. You could leave those wonderful comments or shitty comments if you want. I'll engage with those too. But what you really want to do is you want to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that way you never miss a brand new episode every single Wednesday. As always, I'm available in the DMs on Instagram, and I will see you all right back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at Sex Party FM. Follow Dustin at Dustin Rybka.